Hey there, it's Lauren from Rustic Honey, and today we are having another cozy winter homemaking day at the farmhouse. Come along and cook with me, DIY, and we'll talk about those New Year habits as well. It is another frigid day here at the farmhouse, and I tell you what, this time of year makes you so grateful for a warm home, hot water, all those modern necessities. You definitely don't want to take it for granted. And I think about it a lot because we live in an old farmhouse where we have a lot of prep to do when it gets this cold to make sure our old pipes don't freeze, or at least under the old part of our house. I've been really thankful that my husband's been taking care of a lot of those things and also doing all of the chores on the farm while it's this cold outside. So he's been kind of taking care of the outdoor things, and I take care of everything inside, including a warm breakfast. So I am right in my kitchen, which is where I want to be on a cozy winter day like this. And I say cozy because it's nice and cozy in here. There's nothing cozy about the weather outside right now. I went ahead and thawed out some sausage. I was going to make biscuits and gravy. That's one of our family favorites, an easy go-to and a good hearty comfort food for a morning like this. The kids are home from school again, so it is time to get something warm in their bellies and get ready to do a little bit more of our homeschooling activities for the day. Since they haven't had school in a while, we have homework packets to finish, and we need to tackle those early today. Now this morning you're going to see me prepping what we call drop biscuits. This is the easiest, quickest biscuit that I know how to make. My mother-in-law gave me a recipe card with this recipe when we got married, and I have used it so much I can barely see the writing on it anymore. It has all the spills and splatters, and you know how that goes. Those are the best recipe cards. This is essentially 3 cups of flour. I just use all-purpose flour for this. 4 teaspoons of baking powder, a tablespoon of sugar, a teaspoon of salt, 3/4 of a teaspoon of cream of tartar, which again, I feel like on that one I sometimes don't have cream of tartar and it works just fine too. So if you don't have that, don't worry about it. And then you can add in 3/4 cup of butter, so a stick and a half of butter into this recipe, or you can use shortening if you don't have butter, but I usually have butter on hand. And then you can do buttermilk, which I rarely have, so I just do a cup to a cup and a half of milk to get it to come together. And I really just eyeball that. I start with a cup, make a well in the middle like you saw there, and then blend it together. If it feel like it's a little dry still, then I will add another half a cup or a 1/4 cup at a time until I get the right consistency. So for the drop biscuits, the convenience thing is that you don't actually roll these out and cut them out. They're not the prettiest biscuits, but my family loves these. They actually come out of the oven a little bit crispy around the edges because of all of that butter that's in there. And it crisps up just a little bit on the bottom, but the center stays so nice and fluffy. So it's just like the perfect little vehicle for the gravy. Everyone in our family really loves these, and my mother-in-law still makes them all the time too. That's how I think it's how she makes biscuits most of the time. Apparently, she told me she heard in the South they call these cat head biscuits. So if you're from the South and you've heard of a cat head biscuit, I think this is pretty similar. Let me know in the comments if that's what you guys call it. I meant to tell you in the beginning too, I was lazy and I just grated in my butter. I felt like that was the easiest thing to do, but you can also use a pastry cutter to get that to come together. So however you want to do it, if you have a fork, that works great too. And then you're going to throw them into a really hot oven. It calls for 450 degrees for 10 to 12 minutes. If you want a little bit of a softer, you don't want that crispy exterior like we like, then maybe just do 350 to 400 until they're done in the center. So I went ahead and browned up this sausage, but I am going to save part of it back because later this week I want to use up some leftover cabbage for egg roll in a bowl. I have a few random remnants in my fridge, and I will do this a lot when I cook meat. I'll take part of it and put it towards something else. It's a really good way to stretch our grocery budget, although all of our meat comes from our freezer and from our farm. We're very fortunate for that, but I still want to make it go as far as possible and for feeding my family. So I get a little creative, and usually when I make sausage, I will keep part of it back and use it. Sometimes I'll use it on pizza or calzones, whatever I'm making that week. I try to think, well, how could I add sausage, maybe with some burger or something. But anyway, this week I'm making egg roll in a bowl, so I took some of that and set it aside. Just a little meal planning tip there for you. It's less cooking, and it just, you get a little creative, it goes a little further. For the gravy, I'm doing about 4 tablespoons of flour to about 3 cups of milk. Really, you could do about a tablespoon of flour per cup of milk, but I like to kind of go a little heavier on the flour and add the milk gradually so I don't end up with gravy that's too thin. And then if I want to reheat gravy the next day, you can add a little bit more milk to it and it brings it back to life, makes it fresh all over again. The biscuits are done, everything's coming together, and my family is just ready to dive in. The perfect cozy country breakfast on this frigid winter day. And now it's off to dishes. One of the habits I'm really trying to get back into this year is making sure that I take care of the dishes right away. I do this often, especially in the evenings. I kind of clean as I go, but often through the day I work at home. And so it's really easy to just let it sit there because I'm busy with other things. I want to get back to the office, or I'm helping the kids with stuff, just depending on who's with me for that day. I want to keep my sink clean and my island cleared. So I've really been trying to tackle this, even if I have to set a timer and work on it for a few minutes. I've been doing that. Now, another habit we have had for a while is what we call a ticket system, and I wanted to share that with you today in case you have little ones like I do. Each of our kids has a jar with their name on it, and they earn tickets throughout the week for maybe chores they do, things around the house they can earn. They can also lose tickets for disobedience, however you want to set it up. One of the things we focus on is 1 to 2 things for our kids. So right now, our middle child is really just focused on reading and making sure that he does that habit every day, while our oldest has 2, he's working on chores and picking up after himself. And we do something really easy for the youngest as well, but they can earn tickets, and then the tickets turn into every ticket for us is a quarter. So at the end of the week, they can earn that. And then we talk about saving and giving and how to use that money too. So it's a good lesson in both, but I just wanted to share that quickly. I could talk about that more, but let me know in the comments below if that's intriguing to you or if you want more ideas like that. We can definitely chat about those things in another video. But right now we need to move on to the tomatoes. So my freezer has been full of garden tomatoes since probably August. I not only got tired of canning tomatoes, but I actually ran out of room. I ran out of jars. And so I just started washing them, chopping them, and freezing them so that someday on a cold winter day, I could maybe go back and can them was my thought. But I didn't feel like doing that either. So one thing I had found that worked for me was to take out the big gallon-sized freezer bag of tomatoes and throw it into my Instant Pot or my slow cooker. Season it up. I did a little salt and pepper, Italian seasoning, garlic. You can throw in onion too. I don't think I did that on this one. And then I had this sun-dried tomato paste, which I love to put in my tomato soups. So if you do that, slow cook it, I feel like it turns out really well. I'm gonna be a little spoiler alert here, but don't add the broth. You're gonna see how this, what I mean at the very end of this video, but I have some tips on this too. In the meantime, so stick with me for the tomato soup. We're going to see how that comes together, and I can give you some more tips at the end. But right now, we are going to work on a little bit of a DIY snowflake project. It's my mother-in-law's birthday this week, and my oldest had been really into making the regular snowflakes, just folding up the white paper and cutting it, and we had seen these big ones, and I'd been wanting to try it for a long time. So I thought, let's get out the little sandwich bags and we'll try our hand at making these large snowflakes for a little afternoon project. So as you can see, you stack up about 3 to 4, depending on how thick the paper bags are, and do that little T of the hot glue to get them to stick together. Then start to cut out your shapes on the edges. So I had small bags and I had the large bags, so we did a little bit of both. And my oldest worked on the big ones and my middle worked on the small bags. And of course we had to have Mom's help with the hot glue. I even about burnt myself a couple times, I swear. This is a really good project though for them to work on with the scissors, especially for my youngest, to work on a little bit more of that control. I will say though, depending on the thickness of your bags, don't start with too many to cut through. So even 2 bags on those little ones probably would have been fine. It would have been a little easier for him. And then Ren here has 3 or 4 bags together. I was telling him to kind of angle it to the front. We learned as we went though. It wasn't perfect. So this section is a little bit big, I was telling Ren. So by the time it opens, it creates almost too large of an area. And so making a couple smaller triangles there and leaving a little room in between each one creates a really pretty shape in the, when you fan it out, you can see those little triangles, without having too much cut out in between, so that it holds together a little bit better. And then as you get 2 or 3 cut, then you go ahead and layer on a few more, and then use that top layer as your tracing. As you can see, I'm doing it wrong here. I should have flipped that over so that the T started at the very end of the bag. It still worked out fine, but and it came together just fine. And I just had a few things that didn't. I had to go back and glue a bit. So I kind of did that backwards. So ignore this. The T should have been at the very bottom of the bag where my hand is. I should have flipped it over the other way, but I was in a hurry helping 3 kids cut things. You know how it is. I got distracted. So we did our best. We made a pretty good mess, and we just added a few at a time until we could get all the way around that snowflake. It probably took at least a dozen bags on the big one, maybe 15 bags. I just happened to have, you buy the pack of like 100 little lunch bags. And this is a great snow day project because it's one of those things that you just kind of have all of the supplies that you need already on hand, including ribbon. You guys know that I must have this endless supply of ribbon, and I kind of do in my sewing room, because almost every one of my videos I'm like, oh, I found this ribbon. That's how it goes around here. So I found this ribbon, and we're gonna make this come together so that it has a loop at the top. So as you can see, I'm just laying it out on the exterior, and then this is where it gets a little bit tricky to come together without burning yourself. If you wanted to save these, make these really, really pretty and special, maybe get really nice bags, you could definitely fan these open and then use paper clips to get it to stay open, is what I'm trying to say. And then that way, at the end of, let's say, Christmas or winter, if you wanted to store them away, you could just take those paper clips off, fold them back up, and they would be easy to store and use for multiple seasons. So that would be one way to recycle this project, and use it again and again. But again, these are going to Grandma for her birthday, and so I thought we'll just glue them together and she can enjoy them for this little winter spell that we're having and hang them in her windows. And my creative wheels were turning while we were doing this, and I thought it'd be really cute if you had little red bags and you cut out little hearts instead of the triangles. So when you fanned it out, it was a bunch of little hearts. Or I'm still trying to figure out if you could probably do this and make like a huge heart. So stay tuned. You guys know I love to decorate my house for the holidays. So stay tuned here on the channel. Subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see if we can find something fun to do in the next few weeks for Valentine's Day. Hopefully we will get back to school and into somewhat of a regular schedule and routine around here, and then maybe I'll actually get to decorate for Valentine's Day. I thought these turned out really cute though, and they're perfect for these winter days. Grandma loved them. I did not end up getting a video of us delivering those to her, but she absolutely loved them, and they're hanging in her windows now. Okay, back to this tomato soup. All right, again, this was a total blooper. I don't know what I was thinking. Again, I was at home with 3 kids. I'm pregnant. I have baby brain. I was not thinking when I added that broth in there in the morning. It came out way too thin. And I should have known that because the tomatoes had so much juice. They were straight from the garden. They were washed, chopped, and put in there. Nonetheless, I hit it with the immersion blender because typically that's what I will do. It helps to get out those extra skins. And then you could eat it like that. We do that with a lot of our sauces, but to get out the extra like pulp and the extra skins that you don't necessarily want in a soup, I use my little strainer and work it. There's actually, let me know in the comments, there's an actual tool for this. I know you can get to like make ketchup and sauces, and I'm interested in getting one, but I don't even remember what it's called. I know I looked at it during the summer because I was wanting to make ketchup from all of the gobs of tomatoes. So let me know. Although I laugh because next summer we probably won't have any tomatoes. That's kind of how it goes. You plan ahead and then you have a bad year. You just never know. So I'm gonna put it back in my Instant Pot. I know it seems too thin, so I thought maybe I'll pressure cook it for a while until it's dinner time. It didn't do a whole lot. So we made the best of it. Again, we're not necessarily snowed in, but it has been below 0 outside for multiple days now, and I wasn't about to run out and get anything else for dinner. We're just using up the scraps of what we have, which again, it's still plenty. We have more than we ever need. I had made homemade mayo this week That's another thing I'm working on as New Year habits, is trying to replace some of our store-bought items with easy homemade things. So homemade mayo, I'm loving. Still trying to perfect my recipe, but when I get it down, I will put it on the blog and share that with you. I'm also working this year on making homemade sandwich bread, as you can see here. This one turned out pretty good. It was not a sourdough one, but it was just a regular yeast bread. I really liked how light and fluffy it was. I'm trying to replace store-bought bread mostly for my kids and my husband. I love sourdough bread, but my family is not like the craziest about it unless it's in like a grilled cheese like this. So anyway, I'm working on those things this year too. And as you can see, the tomato soup, it was delicious. The flavor was awesome, but it was way too thin. I want it more like this. This is the tomato soup I typically make, and I will be sure to share that because Lent is coming up and we will eat tomato soup and sandwiches a lot. So it's got carrots and celery in it. I love this recipe, so stay tuned. I will share a better one with you, but I wanted to share that fun way of using your garden tomatoes. It does work, just don't use the extra chicken stock in it because it made it too thin. Don't worry though, because my failures will turn into successes. I froze that tomato soup and I'm gonna throw it into a tortellini soup next week and it will be amazing. So nothing has been wasted. Anytime you fail in the kitchen, just take it as a learning lesson and move on. Sometimes it leads to something more creative and even better than before. I hope you guys enjoyed today's cozy video and I hope you're staying warm out there. We'll see you again soon.